I think you could still have a big market approach to doing things in a smaller community.
I can't wrap my head around everything that you do.
I like the adrenaline rush that directing gives you.
That's a quarter of a century, everybody.
Band's called Twisted Chrome.
Nobody talks to you about that in journalism school, do they?
I don't think so.
An inside look at the people in front of and behind the cameras at NTV on this episode of Inside NTV.
Welcome to another week's episode of Inside NTV, where we talk to folks on camera and behind the scenes to find out how all the stuff works here at NTV and gets the news on the air for you. And what better place to come than the nerve center of the television station than Master Control? And this week, we're joined by Pat. Pat, you have been here how long?
I've been here 29 years.
29 years. You're coming up on 3 decades.
Yeah, that'll be in February.
Wow. We'll get into the job in a moment, but what has made you decide to be here for nearly 30 years?
Just the camaraderie, there's stability, and television is just a fascinating business.
You are originally from Colorado, right?
Yes.
Where, around about where are you at?
Loveland, Colorado, and just north of Denver. So.
Okay, cool. So then, do you mind me asking what brought you out this direction?
Well, actually, I worked in radio before coming here.
Okay.
So when I first moved to Nebraska 31 years ago, I was working in Cozad at KAMI.
Oh, okay.
So then, contract was not renewed, so I did a little stringer work for the Clipper Herald.
Okay.
And then I checked out here, and they had an opening. And I've been here ever since.
Nice. So while we're recording this, you can probably hear some ambient noise. We're doing this while Judge Judy is airing.
Yes.
We can't turn that audio off because these guys have to be able to know what's happening at all times. Explain your job a little bit to everybody.
Well, I'm pretty much responsible for keeping programs on the air, preparing the programs that you see like Judge Judy. We keep the transmitter logs, the commercial logs, and then anything that goes awry, then we have to report that.
Okay.
So like missing commercials, missing programs, like with what we had yesterday with the President Trump, and then we have to report what spots did not air.
Sure.
So that can be reconciled with traffic in South Bend, Indiana.
So you're doing a combination of keeping us on the air, but you're also almost doing a little bit of sales work because you need to make sure that the companies that are buying commercials get what they pay for.
Right, exactly. So whatever does not air, we have to say, hey, this did not air. We have to make that spot or particular spots.
Okay. Interesting. How many screens and buttons do you have back here?
Quite a few. We have to watch over the air signals. We also got to monitor our transmitter sites as on air and off air. So we got it's almost like looking at the, what's the best way to put it? Traffic control in Lincoln.
There you go.
With the NDOT and their webcams. That's what it's akin to.
And then you also, not only keeping us on the air in here, you also have to make sure all the lights are on in the tower, right?
Right, and we can monitor that remotely. There's a monitor behind us, and we can tell when they're on and off, and get an alarm for tower light failures.
And that's an FCC deal because you don't want an airplane flying into the tower.
No, yeah, because if we can't monitor it after 30 minutes, we have to tell the FCC, hey, we're not sure if our lights are on, so they have to issue a NOTAM.
For the news, you don't directly do the news broadcast, but you give us control, as you refer to it.
Right, we give you control from our commercial breaks to you guys, and then I'm the one who's shading the cameras to make sure that Dave, Colleen, Tim, and Darren look good.
There you go. So there is that aspect in here. It's not just the commercial breaks and syndicated programming and national programming. You also have to make sure that the cameras look decent before we go on the air.
Right.
And you don't necessarily just do that by eye. You also have
we have a monitor. We have a scope that we can look at and then adjust.
And then why is it that you would use the scope instead of the monitor?
So we know what level to shade X.
Because the monitors could be a little different, right?
Right. Every monitor is different, so then we just use the scope to get the right level.
So it measures like the temperature and all that
Right.
other stuff.
Yeah, the luminosity of the camera.
Okay. Being here for going on 3 decades, what is your favorite part of your job? Like the favorite thing?
Oh, it just every day is different. You don't know what to expect. So some days, like with the severe weather we've had recently, that keeps you busy because you're going between Tim and you're keeping track of all the severe weather, and then and you can get it on nights like that when it gets really wired. I get home and my brain does not shut down for another 3 hours, and I'm trying to get to sleep, and it's like.
And you have a unique shift. So you, obviously 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, but it's not Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. I mean, you have 3 days in one shift and 2 days another shift.
Right, yeah. So primarily Fridays I'm working, Saturdays and Sundays I'm working 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So while Josh, who I work with, is on his weekend, and I'm covering the day side on the weekends. And then when our evening master control, Orvin, is on his weekend, which is Monday and Tuesday, then I'm covering his shift.
How is that? Just kind of body clock-wise, you're kind of changing from, say, Sunday to Monday.
Well, not really, because then I just go to bed at my normal time, sleep. So, and then when people go on vacation, then we cover their shifts. We have people that cover, and then we put in extra hours or adjust our days off.
And I called this place the Nerve Center for a reason, because the newsroom, we don't technically have somebody in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, this is the one room that you have to have somebody in here all the time.
Someone's here 24/7, 365. And that's necessary for our business.
Regardless of holidays or anything, right?
Exactly, yes, because you got network programming on both sides, and you have to have somebody there to switch the brakes.
Sure. What kind of memories do you have of maybe of people that aren't here anymore, or incidents that have occurred? I mean, I feel like there's a whole litany of things I could pick from your brain here.
Yeah, the ice storm, that was quite interesting. We was running on a generator just to keep us on the air, and then they had to do some stuff in here. They had to run tapes in the tape room, and then I remember we had a big chunk of ice go right through our roofs.
This is 2006, right?
Yeah. And we was without power for like about 4 or 5 days or whatever. So.
What was your role in that? I mean, like having to do different stuff.
Oh, just we still had to do our jobs, record programs and that. So. And then, of course, production had to come in here and do some things because we didn't have power to the whole building. We was using a different type of generator back then.
Okay. I was looking at some of the monitors before we started chatting, and one of the ones I mentioned I saw up there, it was a live feed from Washington, D.C., from the Sinclair station over there, our sister station in D.C., and most of what is airing on that is not airing here, but it is where we pick up the national desk feed.
Right, the national desk and the national weather desk is fed by satellite.
Okay.
But the national desk that you see on KFXL after NTV News at 9 or in the morning hours from 5 to 8, I should say, that emanates from WJLA, and they feed it over the internet.
Okay. So we don't have tapes anymore, right? I mean,
no, everything is delivered by the internet. We have a couple satellite shows, but everything is fed directly FTP. So we have not used tape for well over 10 years.
Wow. Well, I still remember tapes. That's how long I've been doing it. That's cool.
And I remember when I started here being a tape operator, we used multiple formats.
Okay.
Yeah, M2, 2-inch, 3/4 inch, BBC Pro. Quite a few, so Super V.
It's out of the camera shop, but I'm glancing over seeing Josh working on commercials. Sometimes, right now everything's working just fine, and knock on whatever this is made out of. The commercial server sometimes wants to take a nap.
Yeah, but the great thing about this server that we have a primary server and a backup server.
Oh, okay.
So if one goes down, we can immediately switch to the other.
So we can not only keep the commercials on, but keep your television shows on as well.
Right. So we can quickly jump over to the next one.
Nice.
And the secondary, which is really nice to have, in our business we have an alternate log.
Okay.
So that's primarily used for sports like NASCAR. So say NASCAR has a rain issue and they're forecasting rain, they will issue an alternate log that we can use for a rain out, and we just use our secondary server to air the alternate log.
And so the alternate log would be the shows or the commercials that you would be airing instead of NASCAR if it's in a rain delay.
Right, or more likely a rain out.
Okay.
Or if they have to move it because of rain.
Okay. And then, of course, you mentioned NASCAR, just a whole litany of sporting events that you have to deal with.
Yes.
We'll have NBA Finals coming up in June on ABC. Fox, of course, has their own stuff. Speaking of, I want to go to this. College football and NFL on Saturday and Sunday. There's no newscasts in the afternoon, not until 6 or 5:30.
No.
That doesn't mean your job is easy.
No, because we still have to deal with runovers. And everything will either join in progress or they'll slide. So.
And I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I don't necessarily think anybody really wants me to throw all this out there, but the commercials in some of those games, especially if the Huskers are playing,
yes,
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, like Huskers, you could get 80, 100,000 in that ballpark for a Husker game.
That's how important your job is to make sure all that stuff gets on.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, it's important for the viewer because they just want to see the game.
Right.
But as a business, we need to make sure we get all that stuff taken care of.
Correct, yeah.
We'll come back to the work stuff in a moment, but I want to make sure I get to this. I believe you're a ham radio operator, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I've been a DXer since I was a kid, DXing on AM, and then I got into shortwave, and I was involved in Boy Scouts. So one of the hams that was a merit badge counselor, I would call him my Elmer, a guide to amateur radio. So I hung out in his shack every now and then, doing contacts with him. And then when I started here, and then I actually started working on my ham ticket. So I finally got around to doing that. A little bit late, but I got the ticket. So
how are you? Who are you able to converse with? I don't know a ton about ham radio. So.
Oh, you can converse with people all over the world. We use HF, which is shortwave. We even use digital modes, and even use over the internet for communications. So
nice.
It's a lot of digital stuff. So
you probably have friends all over the place because of this.
Yeah, in Japan, Britain, Mexico, Canada. Throughout the countries.
Does that mean you speak multiple languages?
I do speak some Spanish.
Okay.
So I know a few phrases in German, Italian, French, a couple words in Japanese.
So this is because of the ham radio, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's neat. You learn a lot by doing different stuff like that.
Yeah, and you hear what's going on in their part of the world, their politics or whatever. So
that's very cool. You've seen a lot of changes. We talked about tapes and things that aren't there anymore. As far as the newscasts specifically, like the different changes you've seen there, can you go through a couple of those?
Oh yeah, like changes, in terms of cameras we've used, it's done more compact. In fact, when I started, whenever we did live shots, we would have to use a live truck, and they would shoot to the station. They would shoot a signal, and then we'd have to set that up. We'd have to peek it in, tell them you're good, go right, go left, up, down, so you peek into the best signal. And now we can use a backpack and shoot for any story. As I look up here, I see we got on Live View 1, there's a structure fire somewhere.
Yep.
And they're sending back video for the news.
Yep. I believe that's might have been a house fire in Lincoln potentially. Again, we can't see that in the shot, but just looking up at all the monitors that you have, And then we can also watch out of the studio camera. They're working on the set.
And I've seen set changes too.
You've probably seen several set changes.
Yes. I think this has been like my fourth, fifth,
Wow.
something like that. I haven't really kept track of.
So I got to do the math here. 29 years. So that means you started in what year?
95.
95. Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, and of course even satellites. Some we had to get satellite interviews or stuff like that. Now you can just use the internet for that. So
And yeah, like I remember having to book satellite time to have somebody go live for a story.
yes.
And now it's you turn on the Live View Backpack or you go on Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom primarily is.
And you don't have to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, in a way, has made my job easier in some spots. So,
Okay.
some areas.
But you still got a lot to do. I mean, there's,
Oh yeah.
Again, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 computers in front of me, or
Yes.
behind me, and then just countless different monitors. I mean, some of them are security cameras, but still, I mean, just a lot to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and then I keep track of all the programs that we do, and I what I would call myself as a digital media asset manager.
Oh, okay.
So keeping track of all the commercials, programs that we air. So I delete them from the server, ingest a new one. I make up the schedule. So
Nice.
there's a lot of things that you got to do. So
It's very cool. Anything else I'm not thinking of that somebody might be interested in that's watching the news every night?
you'll be surprised that when things go wrong, and there's been a lot of bloopers.
Do you ever have incidents, I mean, probably not as much now, of rain fade?
Rain fades, yes.
Okay.
We do have rain fades on the satellite.
Okay.
And speaking about satellites, rain fades, those we do get when a strong thunderstorm comes over and washes out the network signal. So we've had weather cut-ins where it said, stretch, because we're in a rain fade and trying to get back. You're waiting for the signal to return. So.
Right. So, like, you might be in Jimmy Kimmel, and all of a sudden you don't have Jimmy Kimmel anymore because the rain is not letting your satellite be able to pick up the signal.
Right, yeah. And, of course, another thing with satellites in the spring and fall is what we call the sun outage.
Oh.
So that's where the sun and the satellite sort of come together, and the sun is right in front of the satellite receiver, and it's at the right angle where you cannot pick up the signal.
Huh.
So then it'll drop out a little bit, and then the networks kind of juggle things around so you keep the network.
Very.
So
I've
we
never
have
heard
to
of that.
we have to flip between the two. They'll say we're entering the window. You have to switch to the other receiver, watch for it to drop, and then come back and go back to the other.
Nice. Lastly, before I let you go, and you got to finish and all that stuff, you are a Denver sports fan.
Yes.
Of course, that's where you're from. Bronco fan, and there's jokes every now and then about
Yes.
that. Some of our viewers probably feel that pain. The Denver Nuggets winning the world title last year
Yes.
in the NBA, and you were working that night,
Yes.
thankfully. Dave Greek, also a big Nuggets fan. The two of you had very different reactions to the Nuggets winning that title. I'll describe Dave's, then you can describe yours. Dave was emotional. He was quiet. He was reserved. He was taking pictures. I think he may have shed a tear. Probably wanted to jump out of his skin, but he was definitely the reverse of that. However, Pat here might have reacted differently.
Yeah, I was ecstatic. I was just nuts. I was going outside into the hall screaming, going, woo, and all that. And running back to the newsroom. So
It was fun stuff.
because I've been watching the Nuggets since I was a kid, seeing them get close to the NBA Finals, getting as far as the conference finals, but not getting into the big game.
Sure.
And now they did it, and they won it last year. We got defeated this year against Dallas. But it seemed like there is a curse if you get the NBA's MVP. you get ousted. Jokic did not get it last year, and we won the whole kit and caboodle.
There you go. You'd probably rather have that, right? No, that was a lot of fun. And Pat's a really fun guy to work with, and it's nice to pick his brain here and just randomly on a daily basis. And if I can make him chuckle as I walk by, it also feels like I've accomplished something. So, Pat, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Matt and Chris.
And I will let you get back to stuff. We will have another episode of Inside NTV coming up next week.